Hello, I'm Ramon Valdez. Welcome to my channel. I build beautiful furniture. I show unique processes and techniques. I also share tons of tips and tricks along the way. So if you haven't already subscribed, do me a huge favor. Smash that subscribe button, yeah? Let's get started. So the Veneer Sled just consists of a platform, a couple of cleats, some clamps. On the bottom side, I've got these plastic cleats for better sliption, and those glide on this straight edge. The straight edge has been anchored to my table saw with a bolt here, clamped on the other end, and it's in perfect alignment with the blade, parallel with the miter slot. And so, in action, the veneer will go on here. You'll notice I have sandpaper here for better gription. That holds the veneer in place. I'll use a sacrificial board on top to hold everything down, and thus we'll be creating a zero clearance top and bottom of the veneer for perfect cuts. Let me show you this in action. Here's the anatomy of this Veneer Sled. So it utilizes a straight edge. This is just a phenolic straight edge I got years ago. This is made by Perfect Edge, but I don't believe they're in business anymore. I've had this thing over 20 years. I love it. Anyway, you could use a straight piece of plywood, or you track saw guys and girls might have a track. So essentially what I did is I drilled a hole in this, and I tapped a 1/4-20 in my cast iron table saw right there. And this is just some arbitrary placement a couple inches away from the blade. And 1/4-20 bolt. I'll just get that close. And I could use my fence to square that up, but I've aligned this parallel and I have marks on that other end. I've inscribed them into the Formica outfeed table. So let me clamp that down. I'll be right back.
In other parts of the video, you'll notice the older version of the sled with the straight edge, but this is my current rendition, so just wanted to clarify.
Please continue to hold. And that's it. That's the guide. Let's check out the sled. This thing could not be more simple. It's basically a crosscut sled, but long, right? And so I've just designed this with the measurements to fit my work. And so what you can see here are a couple of plastic cleats, and these ride on each side of the straight edge, and then another cleat that's the same thickness as the straight edge. And with that, that engages just like so. You may have noticed in an earlier part of the video I had an extra straight edge here, and that was just basically to create a bridge, but I've since done away with that. Since I added this cleat, I found that extra straight edge over here was just kind of in my way, and I didn't really have a way to hold it. It just dawned on me I could just add this cleat to keep this thing flat, right? And those cleats, incidentally, these are polypropylene, polystyrene, polyethylene, some kind of poly plastic. And so they glide, and they're not going to change with humidity differences like wood could. If you are going to use wood, make sure you use quarter sawn. That should be fine. Maybe something hard like maple. Anyway, with the blade slightly protruding past the top veneer, and it doesn't matter if you're cutting 1 or 6, right? Just that blade should be maybe, I don't know, 32nd above millimeter, something. And you're always going to use a sacrificial scrap. This is just some old melamine or something, and that's going to hold the veneers down and also provide a zero clearance on top. So you need zero clearance on the bottom, which this provides. This one provides it on top. That's what makes super awesome cuts. I've went ahead and added these clamps just to show you, but in use you would bring this back put your veneers in place, adjust your blade height so it's just slightly protruding above the top veneer. Lay down your sacrificial scrap, clamp that down, boom, make your cut. Super, super effective. Have I mentioned that? Of course, the sandpaper, yeah, you know, it just grabs it, right? And that'll keep your veneers from shifting. If you're cutting several of them, I like taping them together here on the ends where the tape's not going to get cut, and that'll keep them right where you want them. A lot of times I need exact widths, and I'll just screw on some sort of a fence, piece of scrap, screw that down, and you can butt those over and over and get repeated parallel cuts or angled cuts, whatever you want to do. All right, here's another view. You can see I've got these veneers stacked. I also have a built-in stop to the right of the veneers, right? And you'll notice the blade is going to protrude just about a 32nd above the top veneer. You'll notice I have a clamp in the back. I'm adding a weight in the front. All right, let's give this a go. And bam, it's literally that easy. I believe I was cutting 6 at a time here, and they are perfect glue-ready seams.
So with this simple sled, you can make cuts that would seem impossible. Here I have some end grain veneer. Check that out. That's from Certainly Wood, and I'll leave the link in the description. Those cuts came out perfect, and you can imagine how challenging that would be. Now, this veneer has a backer mesh, but even still, without a veneer sled, that would be really hard to cut. So a bit of a side note here, you can see this vacuum box that I added captures all the dust and improved safety. I added a stop at the other end, which limits its travel. Here I've got some cross-grain cuts being glued up. They came out perfect. And here I've got some cross-grain seams married to end-grain seams. So yeah, I love this sled. Now, you could do this on a slider, but I like showing options. So yeah, regular table saw and a veneer sled. All right, so I'm getting a bunch of these sliced and ready for seams. I added some weight just to keep everything flat. All right, getting these veneers cut for some panels, and these actually go on the back of the panels. The front of the panels got 4 pieces of veneer in a book match sequence. So you just take them and open them like a book to book match. I'm running a little bit tight on material, so what I was able to do was take 3 pieces for the backs of the panels and do a slip match sequence. So you just basically slip them to one side like that, and that'll make a pretty good pattern. This is pretty straight grain, so it's going to make really good seams. And on the backs of the panels, it doesn't need to be a book match. So these 2 pieces, we're just going to make a simple book match. You can see those 2 knots, right? So we flip one of them over. And I know this veneer is a little bit curly, but it'll still work. Add some glue. I'm going to start adding tape to pull everything tight. I like using a steel roller just to make sure that everything's flush and that the tape is secure. Yeah. And then we flip it over, and we're going to tape the other side. But first, I used to clean that glue off, and then my buddy Darren Oates out of Australia, he showed me this little trick with sandpaper. As you start to sand that, the glue will kind of roll off. In addition, any little tear out will get filled with some of that sawdust that you're creating. I haven't really noticed a difference in the quality of the seams, but seems to me that it just makes good sense to do this little trick. Again, that little metal roller really makes the tape adhere, and also fantastic for getting that seam perfectly flush. And then a little trick that I like doing is use a low raking light. Any tiny discrepancy in height will show up as a shadow, and you can mash it down, make sure it's tight. Works amazingly well. And there you have it. Beautiful, tight, perfect seams straight off the table saw. My Veneer Sled will be in my upcoming ebook, Volume 2. It's not out yet, but Volume 1, Tricks of the Trade, is available off my website. And here are the first couple of panels in the vacuum bag. So on these particular panels, there are literally 7 seams, and they just came out perfectly. You won't be able to feel them or even see them. And this end grain oak within the wenge background, that'll make more sense in the finished project. And here I'm laying down some conversion varnish. I just put a couple of thin coats, then I'll sand that back nice and smooth, and then one final top coat. So yeah, come back and see the finished pieces. They're going to be spectacular. And thanks a ton for watching.